Can a technical investigation destroy the season of a world champion team? What is really happening at McLaren to make people talk about one of the most tense weeks in its recent history? Today I reveal to you everything that they are not telling you, from the double disqualification in Las Vegas to the total control of the FIA in Qatar. Are Norris and Piastri at the limit? It all started when, after the race on the Las Vegas street layout, the FIA technical stewards carried out standard checks on the cars of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. What they found set off all the alarms. The skid block, that piece of composite known as a plank that goes in the bottom of the car, was below the regulatory wear limit. The regulations require a minimum thickness of 9 mm after the race, and McLaren failed to meet that figure. According to the technical reports, the plank wear reached 1.12 mm in Norris's car and 1.26 mm in Piastri's, exceeding the only millimeter of tolerance allowed. McLaren tried to defend himself. They alleged that the aerodynamic bounce, or porpoising, was unexpectedly aggressive during the race. They also argued that the lack of running in free practice, due to rain and red flags, prevented them from properly adjusting the height of the car. They even compared their case with that of other teams that suffered disqualifications for similar reasons that same year. But it was of no use. The FIA was blunt. In the official documents he wrote that there was no intention to cheat, that McLaren did not seek to deceive the regulations, and that the infraction was the result of an operational error, not a deliberate maneuver. Even so, the sanction was final. Total disqualification for both cars, and with it, the loss of all the points obtained that weekend. Technical woe. On a human level, the relationship between Norris and Piastri entered a delicate phase. Both are immersed in one of the tightest fights for the title in the last decade, separated by just a few dozen points, and with Verstappen attacking from behind with the ferocity that characterizes him. This rivalry, although sporting and professional, had already been carrying tensions for months. Team orders that generated controversy, maneuvers to the limit, crossed radios full of reproaches, and even publications on social networks that, without directly naming the teammate, revealed a certain degree of discomfort and frustration. The Las Vegas disqualification added a new level of conflict. Both drivers felt that a team mistake had jeopardized their personal fight for the championship. Privately, neither hid their disappointment. McLaren, which has always tried to manage its drivers under a strict policy of internal equality, now finds itself in the difficult position of having to contain emotions, calm egos, and prevent external pressure from turning into an internal war. At the same time, complaints began to circulate in Piastri's closest circle about certain previous strategic decisions, suggesting favoritism towards Norris at specific times of the season. Those insinuations, although unconfirmed, were leaked to the media and further fueled the climate of suspicion within the team. Piastri, aware of the car's potential and his own opportunity to fight for the title, demands the same level of protection, preparation, and precision that Norris receives. And any mismatch, any slight error in the wall, becomes fuel for tension. All this happens while the McLaren leadership tries to convey tranquility to the outside, but inside the wear and tear is evident. The meetings are longer, the technical reviews are stricter, communication between departments has become more rigid, and each decision is analyzed with a magnifying glass to avoid repeating a mistake that, in such a tight championship, could cost them not only points, but the entire season. All of this feeds into a broader context that goes far beyond the British team. The FIA is not only investigating individual cases, it is also exploring a pattern that could be widespread across the grid. Since the Brazilian GP, a possible use of heating systems in the titanium skid blocks has been detected. It is suspected that some teams have developed methods to heat these elements before qualifying or racing, so that they expand slightly and thus protrude more from the plank. The result? A car that can roll lower without directly violating the regulations, because the surface wear is partially absorbed by the skids and not by the central plank. Although there is no definitive public evidence that McLaren has implemented such a system, what is worrying is that its case in Las Vegas fits this technical risk profile. Abnormal wear in limited track conditions, lack of correlation between simulation and real data, and an aerodynamic advantage difficult to explain from traditional parameters. This coincidence has placed the Woking team at the center of the FIA's technical radar. Looking ahead to Qatar, the technicians have raised the level of inspection. New technical bulletins have been issued, special flat-bottom inspection protocols have been defined, and more aggressive random checks have been noted during and after each session. It's not just a routine check. It's a meticulous hunt for irregularities, and McLaren is the first target. What happens in Lusail will not be judged only based on the results, but based on the smallest technical detail of the car. In addition, there is a parallel narrative that further complicates the scenario. Certain technical media and specialized blogs have suggested, without conclusive evidence, that suspicious devices similar to those found in Brazil could have been present in the flat bottom of the McLarens. And although these accusations are not confirmed, their mere existence is enough to fuel the atmosphere of suspicion. If it were discovered that part of McLaren's performance in 2024 and 2025 has been linked to these practices, the consequences would be structural. Loss of historical points, exclusion from championships, irreversible reputational damage. All this turns the Qatar GP into a kind of covert trial. McLaren not only competes against Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes. It competes against the regulations, against the shadows of its own technical strategy, and against public perception that is already beginning to question the legitimacy of its success. And in a sport where image weighs as much as points, that threat is as real as any rival on the track. In short, McLaren arrives in Qatar with a sword of Damocles hanging over its head. There is no margin for error. There is no room for gray areas. There is no leniency on the part of regulators. Every centimeter of MCL 39 will be analyzed, every behavior on the track monitored, and every technical decision questioned. The season isn't over yet, but the pressure has already reached levels that could break even the strongest team in the paddock. The Qatar Grand Prix, scheduled for the Lusail circuit, is not simply another stop on the 2025 Formula One calendar. For McLaren, it represents the point of maximum pressure throughout the year, the place where all lines of tension intersect. The sporting, the technical, the institutional, and for the first time in a long time, also the emotional. Qatar is not just a race. It is the epicenter of a storm that could redefine the fate of the championship and, possibly, the team that led the transformation of Formula One the previous year. Lusail is a circuit that, due to its design, requires an almost perfect technical balance. It combines high-speed curves with aggressive braking zones, long stretches that punish aerodynamics, and abrasive asphalt that puts the flat bottom of the cars to the limit. In any circumstance, it is already an extreme challenge. But for a team under total FIA surveillance and coming off a sanction for illegal plank where the race becomes a minefield, this places the team in a lethal strategic dilemma. Play it safe and accept a possible disadvantage against Red Bull or Ferrari, or take a risk in the configuration, knowing that a millimeter error could trigger a second disqualification in less than 3 weeks. And in a season where Norris leads the championship with just a few points ahead of Piastri and Verstappen, losing another race due to a technical failure would be disastrous. But the technical component is not the only one that makes Qatar a real threat. There is also the human factor. Norris and Piastri arrive in Lusail with the title at stake, but in a delicate emotional state. The lack of fluid communication between the two, signs of internal friction, rumors of favoritism, and the feeling that the team cannot make a single more mistake are mixed with the pressure of the environment. The international press has made McLaren the focus of all the headlines, and the sponsors, who had opted for a clean and triumphant season, are beginning to send messages of concern. The pressure is not only technical, nor is it only institutional. It's personal. Lando Norris, championship leader, faces the real possibility of winning the title for the first time in his career, just when his team shows signs of weakness. Oscar Piastri, his partner, has matured at record speed and is emerging as an elite contender. But both need more than speed. They need stability, trust, a pit wall that works like a Swiss clock, not like a high-voltage experiment. And this is where the big question becomes inevitable. Is McLaren prepared not only to win, but to sustain victory under the weight of suspicion, criticism, and total surveillance? Because it is not enough to have the best car. It's not enough to have two of the most talented drivers on the grid. In a Formula One where margins are defined by tenths of a millimeter, mental and operational strength is as decisive as performance on the track. The race in Qatar will be much more than a speed test. It will be a comprehensive exam of leadership, emotional control, tactical reaction, and absolute respect for the regulations. McLaren has a unique opportunity before it, to demonstrate that it not only knows how to reach the top, but that it can endure when everything around it begins to falter. Leave me your opinion in the comments what you think about all this.